Marilu here and welcome to Facets. Today we're discussing the Neuro Consumer. Not in too much detail, because otherwise we would sit here for a whole day, but just the basics of it. Okay. So what do I mean if I say the Neuro Consumer? This is a way of marketing that's very new to the industry. It is where we combine neuroscience and marketing. So this is where they look at the deeper meanings of things, and this is where they use tools such as MRI scanners, eye tracking devices, EEGs to look at the consumer brain, the retinas, to look at what draws a consumer's attention and what area in the brain is activated through certain colors or certain words. It is to understand the consumer better, because let's face it, consumers, even though they say they know, don't really know what they want. This is what it means for marketers to get to that core of what consumers want and why they buy and why they make certain purchasing decisions. So if we look at the brain, there are four main regions of the brain, namely the occipital lobe, the temporal lobe, the parietal lobe, and the frontal lobe. These four regions are responsible for various actions. The occipital lobe mainly controls functions such as your primary visual senses and bottom-up attention, which means this area in the brain is what identifies the color red with Coke, for example. If you were to go shopping and you're looking for a Coke and you see the color red and you can identify that the color red, the can, is associated with the brand name Coke. The parietal lobe is responsible for navigation, self-awareness, and spatial awareness. This is the place where we activate top-down attention. This means that we are activating our brains to actively search for a product or a specific brand. This is also the part in the brain that allows us to learn how to operate things like smartphones and smart devices. This is also where, in other words, product handling. Another part this brain is responsible for in the consumer aspect of things is product navigation. So, for example, if you're in a virtual world, how we observe that virtual world and how we navigate through it. Say, for example, an online store or in an online game. Then we have the temporal lobe. This lobe is responsible for recognizing places, spaces, and objects. It is also the region that controls certain aspects of memory, such as declarative memory and conscious memory. The effects of consumer science on this area of the brain would be looking at social framing effects, as well as how we understand and remember certain brands and products. It is learning and processing certain brands and information given to us through various stimuli, such as visual aids, in order for us to understand certain communication from certain brands. Lastly, we have the frontal lobe, which is responsible for hedonic experiences, working memory, planning and consecutive control, sophisticated motor skills, and social cognition and behavior. This is the part in the brain where long-term planning takes place. So this is the area that would be targeted if, for example, you need to make a big purchasing decision, such as a car. You'd do your research on it, and it's not a convenience good that you would just go in and not think twice about what you're buying. This is the type of product or service that you'd think about a bit and gather information on before you make that conscious decision to purchase the item. It is also the place in the brain where we associate certain experiences and feelings with certain events, products, services, and brands. So now that we understand a little bit more about the brain, we can use this to our advantage in the consumer realm. This helps us navigate through the process of the consumer and how they think and why they think certain things. Some is due to external stimuli, such as colors, words, brands, associations they make with certain brands or products, or experiences that they've had. Whereas others are environmental. It can be in a certain area. It can be due to the fact that they live in a certain area and are exposed to certain things, that they understand things a certain way. It can be social. It can be the people who surround them that influence their decisions. And it can also be internal, the primitive side of things, the side that drives you to eat, to survive, that detects danger and steers you away from danger and rewards you when something is pleasant, and when something is safe, then it rewards you to understand that this is okay to use, or this is okay to eat, and it creates a pleasurable effect and releases dopamine in the brain to give you that happy feeling. So this is what brands tap into when they are not only designing their logos or their brands, but also when they are communicating to their customers. There's always an underlying influence from start to finish with a brand. From once you see the logo to when you go into the store and purchase something, when you pick it up off the shelf, when you go to the cashier or interact with the staff on floor, everything attributes to your experience of that brand, which is so important today for brands today, because brands want to be the first thing that comes up in consumers' minds, and they want to be preferred above another brand. So in order for them to place themselves in that position and in that front of mind position, they need to make sure that every single experience that the customer has with the brand is associated with a pleasurable experience and not a negative experience. Otherwise the brain will start giving warning signals, and it will influence the consumer in a sense to let them know that they've had a negative experience, and they start pulling away and steering away from that brand, and the brand will lose the relationship they had with that consumer just because of that one small thing. Our brains are very intricate and sensitive things, and it is amazing how a small molecule like ethanol, which is alcohol, can inhabit and change behavior to a point where it's completely different from before taking the ethanol. And this just shows that we are dealing with a very sensitive organism, if you may, because if something so small can influence us in such a large scale, then what can a major event not do? To what extent can brands not influence us? Our brains are definitely the black box of our being, and we still don't have all the answers, and we are still learning a lot day by day. But just this little amount of information has taken us a long way to understand where the person's decision-making process starts and where it comes from. So brands can tap into this in an extremely profitable way, but it's a very delicate process, and brands need to take care of their consumers, and they need to realize that it's not just a product they're selling, it's a whole experience. And that you can see through the history of marketing, when it started with a bellboy on the corners of the street yelling out for newspapers or yelling out for products like fruits or vegetables, and it's become and because today is such a competitive environment and brands have to compete with each other, it is so important and detrimental to them as brands to pay attention to the smaller details and think of it on a neuron scale and not just on a mass scale. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up, comment in the section below, and if you like my material, please subscribe. I'll post some information in the description below if you are interested in this field and you'd like to read some more about it. See you all in my next video.